It's your girl Tammy coming at you on this Wednesday with some encouragement. Happy hump day. Hope your week has been off to a great start. I'm just going to hop right in today with my encouragement. Today, I want to talk about not running ahead of God, not going on your own plans or jumping ahead when He gives you instructions. Make sure you wait on Him. Make sure you let Him do what He says He's going to do, because He will. So I want to look at a story in the Bible of an example where they didn't wait and where they took matters into their own hands because in their opinion it was taking too long. And because it was taking too long, they felt, they had to put their hand in it and help God out a little bit. And so by doing so, they ended up, creating some strife and creating trouble that they could have avoided had they just not run ahead of God and not try to do things themselves, but wait on Him to bring to pass what He promised and only do what His instructions say. So I want to look at the story of Abraham and Sarah, and a lot of you are probably familiar with that story, but if not, it comes out of Genesis chapter, it actually starts Genesis chapter 15, where the Lord actually makes a covenant of Abraham. So Abraham and Lot were together, and Abram, the land could not contain them. That's in the previous chapter, chapter 14. They had so much livestock and so much family and herd that the land could not contain them both. So they had to separate from each other. So Lot went one way and Abraham went the next. And once they separated and once Abraham was on his own, the Lord appeared to him and said, look, I'm going to give you this land and you're going to have all of these descendants. Look up to the sky, look at all the stars. That's how many descendants you're going to have. And Abraham's just like, how am I going to have any, who am I going to leave all of this to? You're giving me all of these things. Who am I going to leave it to? Because I don't have any children. I don't have a son to leave it to. And the Lord tells him, now this is in, chapter 15, the Lord says, I'm going to give you a son. You're going to have a son. You're not going to have to leave all of this inheritance that I'm going to give you. You're not going to have to leave it to your servant. I'm going to give you a son, and your inheritance is going to go to him. And so fast forward, I'm sure, Abraham went and told Sarah, what the Lord had told him. And I'm sure she was like, oh, okay, like we haven't had children thus far, but if He says so, that's what's going to happen. But as time went by, now you're looking at about a 10-year period now, and picking up at chapter 16, it says, but Sarah, Abram's wife, had no children. So Sarah took her servant, an Egyptian woman named Hagar, and gave her to Abram so she could bear children. The Lord has kept me from having any children, Sarah told Abram. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her. And Abraham got this bright idea that he was going to agree with her and do it. So Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, gave it to her husband as his wife. And all of this happened, it says, after about 10 years. So it's about 10 years down the line. Nothing's happening. Sarah hasn't had any children. They're still wondering, okay, we're supposed to be having this son to leave all this inheritance to. I don't see anything happen. Here, you go sleep with my servant. Maybe the plan really was for me to have children through her and not me. But that wasn't what God said. But she started looking at other options like, okay, well, maybe it's supposed to happen this way and not that way. So Abraham slept with Hagar. As the chapter continued, she became pregnant. And when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress Sarah with contempt. So here brings in the strife. She took matters into her own hand and opened the door for strife and contention in the home. So now you have this mistress who's having a baby, knowing that Sarah wasn't able to have a baby, and now she is, taunting her. And so now Sarah's mad. It's all your fault. Now this servant is pregnant. She despises me. Though I myself gave her the privilege of sleeping with you, will the Lord make you pay for what you've done to me? I think that is so funny because now this was her idea. Remember, this was Sarah's idea. And now that the idea has actually come to fruition, the mistress is pregnant. She's about to have this baby. Now she's like, well, the Lord's going to repay you for doing this. Why'd you do this to me? And of course, Abraham's like, this was your idea. Like, this was your plan, not God's plan. This was your plan. And so, you go through all of that. And then as you keep going and you get over into chapter 18, where the Lord appears to Abram. He's letting him know, look, in this time next year, you're going to have a son. And so, he ends up having a son who was Ishmael, who was not the promise. But God still comes through. God still does it the way that he was going to do it in the beginning. And I truly believe, and I don't know this is just Tammy speaking, but I truly believe if they had have just waited, and if they had have just continued to believe that God was going to make it happen when he wanted it to happen, that they wouldn't have had to wait so long. It was almost like, okay, it was 10 years in, you decided to go your own way. Then you had to wait an additional so much more years, 10 to 12 more years before it was actually manifested the way the Lord intended it to manifest. And I believe that we can do that sometimes. Sometimes we sabotage our own blessings and sabotage, what God has promised us, because when it doesn't happen when we think it does, or when it doesn't happen the way we think it should happen, or go down the avenue that we think it should go down, we tend to, in our mind, change up. Well, did God really say that? Or maybe he meant this, or maybe that was just a metaphor for this, or maybe I can just go over here and get the same thing, and then we tend to kind of make excuses, and it draws us away from God supplying the promise to us the way he wants to, in the timing that he wants to. So my encouragement for you today is, don't run ahead of God. Don't go outside of his instructions. Don't go outside and make your own plans for making his promises come to pass. God is well able to make all of his promises come to pass. He does not need our extra plans. He does need our cooperation with any instructions that he gives us, and he needs our cooperation as far as faith and believing that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. But he doesn't need us to change the plan. He doesn't need us to make up the plan. He has the plan already. He just asks us to follow his plan until we see what he has promised come to pass. So that is my encouragement to you. And I encourage you to read over this story through Abraham and just be encouraged. There are other stories in the Bible as well, as when people decided to go, make their own way or have their own way. And it always brings, bad consequences that could have been avoided had they just stayed on the path. So my encouragement is, stick to the path. Let him do what he's going to do the way he's going to do it and in his timing, and not try to go your own way. So I hope that blesses you today and encourages you, and I will talk to you soon.